The New York Islanders have made a roster move, and there are more roster moves to come as key Islanders players are finally coming back from injury. We're going to be talking about that in this episode of Islanders Digest, and also talking about how these moves can have major implications on the Islanders season moving forward. But before we get to that, be sure to subscribe to Islanders Digest. Hit the subscribe button. Be one of our first 100 subscribers. If you're an Islander fan and you want more Islanders content, this is the channel for you. Now, if you're an Islander fan like me, you were probably a little disappointed with Team USA's effort last night. I was really hoping for Brock Nelson to have a major game for Team USA. Instead, he was on the ice for 2 goals, including the goal where Connor McDavid scored to give Canada the overtime win. It was really disappointing, but as an Islander fan, you had to look on the bright side. The bright side is while several teams' players got pretty injured in this really competitive, amazing Four Nations face-off, Brock Nelson is returning to the Islanders healthy. And along with Brock Nelson, the Islanders are getting some help back from several injured players, which has led them to make a roster move today. The Islanders have yesterday put Dennis Shalansky on waivers. Today they got the news that Dennis Shalansky has cleared waivers. He will be reporting to the AHL team. And honestly, this is really good news for the Islanders. First of all, that they still retain Dennis Shalansky in the minor league system. Now, Dennis Shalansky has not had the best time at the New York Islanders. He has had a couple points, a couple key goals, but he has really struggled defensively. However, the Islanders have been plagued by defensive injuries all season, and although they're finally getting their players coming back healthy, it almost feels too good to be true. The Islanders have had so much defensive injuries. It's good to know that they still have Dennis Shalansky if they need to call him up later in the season. The good news is, though, that since he's going down to waivers, that means the Islanders can activate Scott Mayfield and Ryan Pollock for their next game, which is huge because they're going to need these players if they're going to have any shot at making the playoffs. Now, a lot of fans seemed a little upset that Dennis Shalansky was sent down, especially for Scott Mayfield, which, to be honest, I really do not understand. I was actually kind of shocked to see how many fans were disappointed with Scott Mayfield returning to lineup, because, especially for Dennis Shalansky, because Dennis Shalansky has really struggled for the Islanders this season. We're going to go into his stats right now. Dennis Shalansky, he has, like I said before, he has had a couple points, 3 goals, 7 assists, so 10 points in 33 games. That actually sounds pretty good for a defenseman. He has been slightly better on the power play than some other Islanders defensemen. He really doesn't have any points to show for it, but he has moved the puck pretty well. I had a couple goals right at the end of power play, so don't count as power play points, but in my opinion, that's still basically power play production, even though it's not on the stat sheet. That being said, defensively, he has really struggled, and Patrick Waugh does not seem to trust him at all. He's averaging 13 minutes a game. Keep in mind, in the last few minutes, he's played really under 5 minutes a game. In his last game, he played around 2 minutes and 45 seconds. Clearly, Patrick Waugh does not trust this player in the lineup, and if you really can't trust a defenseman to play more than 3 minutes in a game that you're already losing and you're trying to pick up offense anyway, it really does not seem like Dennis Shalansky really fits the Islanders' plans anymore. So sending him down to the minors really does not bother me at all. On the other hand, Scott Mayfield is a very important defenseman for the New York Islanders. I understand fans do not love his game, and honestly, this is pretty typical of teams and their third pair defensemen. Third pair defensemen do not play pretty games. They do not play pretty minutes, but Scott Mayfield, when it comes to third pair defensemen, gets the job done. Sure, he does get paid a little more than some other third pair defensemen, but at the end of the day, we can't really change how much money he gets paid, but he is producing for what it's worth. Sure, he only has 2 points and 5 assists for 7 points in 50 games, so there you can make the argument that he's not producing as much as Dennis Shalansky, but as I've said before on this channel, there's more to defensive numbers than just how many points you put up. As a defenseman, your number one job is to keep pucks away from your net and keep the puck as far away from your zone as you possibly can. While Scott Mayfield is not the best at moving the puck away from the zone, he is a plus 14, so clearly he is playing solid defensive minutes. He's also playing 17 minutes a game, so he's clearly playing more than Dennis Shalansky. He's more trusted by Patrick Waugh than Dennis Shalansky, and he's earning those minutes. Scott Mayfield plays really tough physical minutes. He's hard on players. He's one of those defensemen that people do not like to play. He's known to give a cross-check here and there. That's kind of why he has 25 penalty minutes. But even with the penalty minutes aside, Scott Mayfield is a very good defenseman for the New York Islanders. He really struggled last year. He had that broken leg that he was kind of trying to play with. He had a fracture there. This season, he's showing that why he's so effective when he's healthy. I think it's great the Islanders have Scott Mayfield in the lineup. And when they do have to make a decision on who plays moving forward, I think Scott Mayfield should definitely remain in the lineup. That being said, that is not going to be an easy decision. And Patrick Roy has a lot of options for the New York Islanders on defense. And we're going to get into those options right now. This season, the Islanders have had almost 12 defensemen play. Right now, we have a couple of them on this list of their current roster. Dennis Cholonsky will not be on that list in the coming days, the same way that Isaiah George and Hutton are not currently on this list. That being said, they've also played minutes for the New York Islanders defensive core this season. They have a lot of options. For the NHL, it's really intriguing, especially after their waiver pickup of Adam Bovequist. In addition, they recently acquired Scott Pronovich and signed Tony DeAngelo. So the Islanders have a lot more defensive options than they started the season with. Now, Mike Riley is on this list. If I had to guess, Mike Riley will likely not return for the New York Islanders this season. We really haven't gotten an update on him this season after he had that heart surgery. Fortunately, it sounds like everything is going well for Mike Riley. It just doesn't seem like he's going to have time to get on the ice and return this year, which is a shame, but it's just I'm just glad to know that the player is doing all right. But how do the players on this list? Patrick Roy has a lot of players to choose from, and he's made it really clear that it is not going to be easy to crack this Islanders lineup, and he is not going to make it automatic for the veterans. Here's a quote that Patrick Roy had on this situation with all the extra defensemen. It's going to be about who plays the best. We're going to have to make some tough decisions, but at the end of the day, I mean, it's everything for the team to make this team as good as possible. Now, as I talked about earlier in this video, there are more roster decisions to come. So right now, Dennis Cholonsky was the first defenseman to be sent down, but it looks like there's going to have to be another defenseman sent down, as pretty soon Noah Dobson will also be returning from injury. And then the Islanders will have 8 defensemen in the NHL roster. That's too many. They want to have 7 defensemen. There's 6 regulars and an extra. And it's going to be really interesting to see who those 6 defensemen are. But I think it's an even more interesting discussion to talk about who is going to be sent down. As I said before, a lot of fans want that defenseman to be Scott Mayfield. Fans don't seem to like Scott Mayfield at all. I feel like it is definitely not going to be Scott Mayfield who is sent down. If you look back at the list of defensemen we have to choose from, I think it is likely going to be one of the new players that Lou Lamoriello has acquired. Of the 3 players Lou Lamoriello has acquired, I am assuming that Tony DeAngelo is safe. He has played that well. Honestly, even when Noah Dobson returns, I feel like Tony DeAngelo is still going to be on the top power play unit. Maybe they'll try to find a way to bring Tony DeAngelo and Dobson together to have 2 defensemen on the power play unit, but I definitely think Tony DeAngelo is going to keep his time on the top power play unit. He's been playing over 20 minutes a game, and you can really tell who Patrick Roy trusts on defense by how many minutes they play. Because Patrick Roy, when you're playing well, he will give you more minutes, and when you're playing poorly, he will take them away. And that's something I really appreciate of him as a coach. He's honest with his players. When you're not playing well, you don't play, and that's what the Islanders need if they're going to be competitive. And honestly, I think this competition for the defensemen is a good thing because the Islanders are going to have to play lights out defensively if they want to have a shot at making the playoffs. Matt Barzal is still out for the next 4 weeks at least, so the Islanders are going to want to win games. They're not going to be doing it by outscoring teams. They're going to have to play well defensively. And honestly, I think the best way that Patrick Roy can really do this is maybe find a balance between defensemen based on the teams they are playing. Defensemen like Adam Bovequist and Ryan Pulock a little bit, but defensemen like Adam Bovequist and Scott Pronovich, Tony DeAngelo have really shown they have a lot of offensive prowess. That being said, they are less solid in the defensive end. So maybe you can see Patrick Roy implement defensemen like that in games where they want to move the puck quicker, and in games where it's going to be more of a gritty game, maybe you implement more defensemen like Scott Mayfield, that type of thing, and kind of rotate these guys out until you really see who are the defensemen that you want to trust the most going down the stretch. That being said, once Noah Dobson does come back, I think out of this list, as I mentioned before, I think it's going to be Adam Bovequist that gets sent down. Like I mentioned, minutes seem to be very telling on how much Patrick Waugh, trust defenseman, and Adam Boqvist out of this list of players who is currently in the lineup is getting the least minutes. So either he's going to have to find a way to really prove himself, or it's likely that he is going to be getting sent down next once Noah Dobson returns, which is a shame because I feel like Adam Boqvist has been really good in some of the moments he's played so far. That being said, if he wants to play more, he has to play better because other players are playing better than him. Let me know what you think about this. Do you think it was a mistake that the Islanders sent down Dennis Cholonsky? Do you think another defenseman should have been sent down instead? And who do you think should be sent out of the lineup next once Noah Dobson comes back into the lineup? Let me know your thoughts on these in the comments below. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you so much for watching. Let's go Islanders.